Okay, welcome to Practicum Summer 2025. This is it. This is the culmination of a lot of hard work on y'all's behalf. So I'm happy to be here, happy to be supervising your time. I look forward to a lot of mutual learning this semester. Um, this is a recorded session, so I want everybody to have a chance to view and review if you want to. So we're going to talk about course expectations over the next 90 minutes. I'm going to start letting people in. I know several people can't be here, so I appreciate you letting me know. That way we can be flexible with the delivery. So I'm going to go ahead and let people in. One of the main things, if you are tuning in and you weren't here, I'm going to do a check-in with everybody. So that's one thing I would like, if you could, for me, over the next week, please just a short synopsis of, if you can't be here today, just where you are in the process. You know, there may be some of you that have already started practicum with Professor Trammell in the spring in our transitioning into Practicum 2. There may be a couple of you that this is the first Practicum. Regardless, I want to know where you are with regard to getting started. I'm trying to check in, make sure people have what they need to get started. We have a very short amount of time. So just this is a special message for those of you that are watching that, hey, I do want to get an email from you. That way I can assist you in any way possible to make sure you're off on a good note to start. So anyway, without further ado, I'll let some people in. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Grace. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm well. Hi, Joe. How are you?
I'm okay.
Good. I see you're in the automobile, so hopefully things are where you can at least be settled and participate for a bit here.
Yep.
I appreciate you joining us on short notice. And again, if you want to watch the recording, it is being recorded. So if you have to cut out early, please know that you can go back and reference this later. And hey, Lewis, how's it going?
Doing my best.
All right, looks like I caught you over lunch, which that's fine. This is a lunch hour meeting, and many of you juggling full-time work and other duties with Practicum. So please know if you need to catch a bite here, we'll take turns talking. There should be 9 of us eventually when we all, are able to negotiate the scheduling. And so that'll give us each time to, if you need to take 20 minutes to eat or whatever, you should have the time to do that. I won't pick on you too much while you're trying.
Sorry. I had group and then I have this and then I have supervision on my actual lunch hour and then I have to go back to work and do another group and then I have class with Adams tonight. So it's just a big, very busy day.
Wednesday is hardcore then. All right. So you've got that addiction studies class coming up tonight too. Now, she's just going to do that one night a week, isn't she going to try to make that a hybrid?
Yeah, that's what the syllabus said.
Yeah, okay. I thought she was going to do that. That's okay with me as long as she gives stuff, to make up for that extra day. Okay, well, there are only 3 of us, but that's all right. So Grace, this is your practicum 2. Okay, Lewis, this is your practicum 2. And Joe, this is your practicum 1.
That's right.
Okay, all right. So I'll try to balance this, and I'm glad there's people representing both the practicum and 1-2 folks here because that makes the lecture more germane to what we need to cover for both sections. So we are a split class. There are several of you that are coming in from Professor Trammell in the spring, and then there are several of you that are beginning this summer. One of the things that's different about the summer semester is it's only 8 weeks. It's very compressed. The time will go very, very quickly for us. It's only 8 weeks. I'll start this just by saying that, and I have had some people reach out, maybe even wanting to put this off. Please know that we do offer quite a bit of flexibility in this particular offering of practicum because it is only 8 weeks. If you were at a K-CREP accredited program, it's mandated that those practicum internship classes actually run 10 weeks to get all the hours. So 8 weeks is a couple weeks short of that. We've kind of argued back and forth whether or not we would really buck the trend at Northwestern to offer something a little bit longer than June and July. So we haven't pressed for that. Instead, what we've offered are the interim hours. And so we'll get into that later into while we get into your practicum handbook. There is an opportunity to earn hours in between official semesters. So the big ownership on that is that we don't meet as a class, and so you'll spend extra time with your site supervisor to make up for that you're not meeting as a group. But please know if you do run into trouble or like, hey, there's something that came up that I need to talk about, especially with my site, please know that we're here, an email to me, Professor Trammell, Professor Adams. We'll make sure that the whatever it is that may have come up gets handled appropriately. Yeah, you still have support, but we won't meet as a group. So with that said, if you get to August 1st, this class ends July 28th. So my grades are due that day. So it's like I don't have any turnaround time. So I think most of the assignments, I'm trying to remember, we'll get to the due dates. I don't want to give a wrong one as I speak here. So most of the assignments are due at the end of July, and that's out of necessity. So I have a chance to review them. And so if you don't get to 150, it's really important, especially if you're in Practicum 1. Practicum 1 students have to hit the 50 direct and 100 indirect for a total of 150 before they can move on, before that class is complete. So if you don't hit that mark, please know, as long as you're making good faith efforts, you're not just sitting on your butt, not doing anything. You will get an incomplete for that and have some time to finish that, whether that's an interim sheet, and I'll show you how to use that, or sometimes the interim even goes to into fall for a couple of weeks. That's not ideal, but again, it's not a punishment to you. It's just to make sure that you get the experience that's necessary for the class. So I just wanted to preface that before we get into like the paperwork that, if it is, hey, this is so condensed, I'm not sure I can make this work. Please know I'm flexible and we'll make it work. Okay, well, with that said, let me do a check-in with you all before we get into the syllabus while I'm thinking about it. So Lewis, we'll start with you. Lewis, tell me a little bit about your practicum experiences so far, kind of where you are, like the number of hours that you have going into the semester, and what your goals are moving forward.
I would have to see, I'd have to go on my Blackboard and see the exact hours to give you a specific number. I know that I far exceeded what was required. I think I got 400 or so last semester.
Okay.
I can double check going into my grades real quick and just pulling it up.
That's okay. I mean, a ballpark is good for me because that helps me understand where you are with your development, what your needs are this semester. So you're accruing hours concurrently as with your employment there at Bill Johnson.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Do I have to redo my FERPA since I'm at the same site? Do I have to redo my site packet and all of that stuff from Practicum 1?
Fantastic question. You don't have to redo it, but you do have to upload the original documents.
Okay, so I just resubmit it.
So yeah, I don't want people to read. So all that documentation should be good for a year. So that goes for you too, Joe. Once you get those things signed, if you go into Practicum 2 in the fall, you'll just re-upload them. And that's because we don't have access to each other's courses as professors. So if Adams takes it, if Trammell takes Practicum in the fall, they'll need the same copies so they have a reference.
Okay.
So yeah, good question. I'll cover that in just a minute too. So you have everything good to go. You have your insurance. We'll talk about that in a minute. Been practicing. What does that look like for you then on site where you're at?
I have a group room. Typically, at most, it'll be 14 guys. We got a special exception through the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health to exceed 8. Sometimes groups will be very small, though, if we have a lot of people finish early or if they leave on parole after a certain level of the program, we don't fill in those spaces because they're missing the core curriculum of the ABCs of thinking and the triangle, the cognitive triangle, and stuff for rational thought. So the last couple of months are really just polishing things, working on communication skills while using rational thought throughout the last few books to learn those things. Um, there's some processing in group. It's not always processing. We try to implement as much as we can, but for the most part, it's psychoeducational groups with some interactive things and workbooks and going over material, and then also having them bring in their real life experiences into those scenarios and those questions in the books and whatnot. We have individual sessions that we can do. Sometimes the guys don't opt for it because of the stigma on male therapy, and also because they're in the prison, they think that someone who's going to individuals might be snitching and things like that. So there's a bit of a stigma around the guys who go to individual sessions. So we combat that as much as we can in the group room to let them know, hey, this is a safe place. This is, if you're struggling with something, feel free to come by. I had a guy today who asked for an individual tomorrow. So I'll have updates on that. But I saw on his sheet that he got a misconduct, so he might just want to talk about that. I'm not sure if he's going to be seeking some type of. I don't know if he wants me to try to help him with his trouble he got into, or if he wants to come to process some things that are going on. Hopefully the latter, because I can't really help with the first part. But today in group, I kind of ran into a small ethical pitfall a little bit. Um, Kind of got caught up into almost advice giving, not quite. I staffed it with Spade already, and I'm going to talk with Miss McLean after this about it. But I kind of fell a little bit into some advice giving. Had a client who was talking about a phone call with his wife earlier that day that kind of set him off. And he said that he controlled himself, but he doesn't know what to do in that situation. And so he was asking what to do, and I was, just asking him questions, open-ended questions. Do you find value in the relationship? What was the goal of the call? What are you looking for? And then he kind of was just like, well, I don't really know what to do. And I was like, well, you can start to prepare. Failure to prepare is preparing to fail. If you know that this person is going to be difficult to deal with on the outside, you can start preparing to deal with them by managing yourself and controlling yourself on these phone calls. And that kind of fell a little bit into advice giving, because I was telling him what to do and how to handle the situation instead of asking him how he could handle it in a healthy way or
Yeah.
what he could do instead of, getting upset ways that he could cope with it. What are some grounding techniques to keep yourself in the moment and not think about the future or the past or the things that are upsetting you in the moment? So, um, could have gone a lot more ways with that than I did, and I ended up kind of just almost throwing him a pass. Like here you go, here's the answer, and
Yeah.
I feel like I shouldn't have done that.
Okay. So that's self-recognition and going to the supervisor and speaking to it, and that's a good awareness. What skills have you learned so far that might help you refrain from advice giving?
Um, Really got to be aware of myself. I have to take some time with the silence. I have to understand that I am not the expert, kind of take that from MI, that they're the expert of their own life, and I'm just a facilitator of the change process.
Yeah, I fall if I find myself like I have an answer and I want to give it to you. I find myself falling into that MI quite a bit, that motivational interviewing, because that helps you at least fall into a technique where, okay, I know what the parameters are in this technique, so I'm gonna stick myself over here in this realm so I don't cross over. So I appreciate you speaking to that. Sounds like you're well underway. I also like to hear that you are getting to do some processing, and that's necessary for this. It's necessary for growth, and as a practicum student, not to just do rehab because that's case management. That's stuff that can be done with a bachelor's. So, lean into that when you can and when your supervisors allow. I know Trent, is encouraging of that, being,
Yeah, the
or
only time they draw the line is if it's a military person wanting to process through military PTSD, because we're not really certified for that, and that's kind of stepping on the VA territory. So we help them process it. If it comes up in group, we talk about it, but we're not trauma certified. We're not like, specific for that. So we kind of try to help connect them. We put on the case manager hat from the 12 core functions, and we're like, look, um, we can help connect you with resources at the VA when you leave to talk about that specifically. But while you're here, we work on substance use and this stuff and helping with that. But this specific trauma, uh, you can talk about it if it comes up, but we're not going to try to dig into it. And normally they're like, oh, okay. And they'll talk about it on their own, but we don't ever try to dig deeper into it too much because it is something kind of outside of our wheelhouse out there.
What are your plans after you graduate, Lewis? Are you done after the summer?
After fall, I
Okay.
have
Okay.
one more class. I have um family addictions counseling, the class, the
You'll
actual
you'll
counseling
take that
part, not the
class and
theory.
you'll comp in the fall.
Yep. I have that class and I have comps in fall, and then I walk in December on the 7th. Hopefully,
Awesome.
as
Oh
long
yeah.
as everything goes well, as long as I pass comps and whatnot, I should be good to go. And then after that, just stick around at Bill Johnson's for a little bit, for test prep for LADC and whatnot. And then I'm still trying to decide if I want to pick up the prerequisite credits for med school and take the MCATs and become a psychiatrist, or if I want to pursue a PhD. Kind of trying to weigh out my options because if I stay at Bill Johnson's and get those credits, they're free through Northwestern because I would be a full-time employee, so that's hard to beat. But pursuing that PhD, I might have to, um, you know, uh, struggle a little bit with
Yeah.
finances for a
Yeah, we
while.
don't offer that unfortunately, but yeah, so it sounds like you've got some good lofty goals out there. And I think you've shown the capability of pursuing that. So hang in there, Lewis. It's good to have you in class, and it's good to hear that you've had a lot of hours. It sounds like you've got your hours if you need them. I'll say this now because it comes up. Uh, I am okay as a professor if you're in practicum too, and I think you'd hear something similar from Professor Adams and Professor Trammell, that if you get to your 100, because you have to have like 50 and then 100 for 150 and then another 50, another 100 for another 150, equaling 300 total. So 100 direct, 200 indirect, and we have no flexibility with that as far as our accreditation with the state and both licensure boards. So we have to hold students accountable to that. However, let's say you're in a situation where you're at 400 right now. You've got 100. I don't know if you've got 100, you probably have 100 direct and maybe 300 indirect.
I
Uh,
have I have a lot of direct because
yeah,
like our group sessions go like 3 hours
maybe
sometimes.
two and maybe 50-50, maybe 200 and 200. So by virtue of, and say you got to that 200 indirect. Let's say you had a life circumstance come up. So the life circumstances I'm thinking here are maybe incredible illness of a parent or a pregnancy or giving birth or whatever the case may be. We've had students in the past get to where you're at and say, "Hey, I'm in practicum 2. Is it okay if I suspend my accruing of hours?" And that is okay. What is not okay is you still have, and every student has done it. You got to continue to come to class. You got to produce the videos. You got to produce the other things that are necessary for practicum to meet the parameters of the class. However, if you are able to get that those magic numbers and want to suspend accruing more hours, that's your prerogative. So I just want to let you know that that's a possibility. That's come up a couple of times, not often. Most times, I do encourage people, if they can, to accrue as many as hours as possible because Oklahoma is on the rather low end of the necessary internship practicum hours that are necessary. So if you go to Texas, you have to have, I think it's at least 6. If you go to Colorado, you have to have 700. I think Kansas has moved to 700. So we're on the low end of the required amount of hours. So if you do go over and can go over, I encourage you. In my own situation, when to go on to get my PhD, uh, I went to a program that had expectations that people either graduated from a KCREP accredited program or equivalent. Now, I graduated from this program, and it was back in 2004. And so I did my practicum. The good news for me was I was working as a drug and alcohol counselor. because it was before 2005 when you had to have the 60 hours, you had to have the degree. So I had been doing counseling as a part of my practicum, kind of similar to what you're doing there, Lewis. And so I was able to show proof of 1,000 hours because I still had my hours. I still need my supervisor, and they signed off on it. And I basically, I would have had to gone back after practicing for 13 years. I would have had, with a license, I would have had to have gone back and done more practicum internships. So I was like, no, I don't, I've already done enough of this. So it does behoove you, if you can, to go ahead and document, and so we'll talk about ways of documenting today. If you want to, I had an Excel spreadsheet that I retained. And so if you, even though we give like the PDF here, if you want to create something similar with the columns and the individual hours, the group hours, the supervision hours, if you want to create something similar in an Excel spreadsheet, I encourage you to, because that adds to the ease of your record keeping rather than just writing it out. And I probably do have something I could share that's equivalent if y'all are interested in that. But
I have a sheet that I've been keeping, but it's on my work computer, not on my personal one. So
yeah, yeah. So I know a lot of students do that, and I encourage you to. It's portable, it's flexible, and you put it in the cloud. You can pull it down somewhere else if you're not needing a piece of paper. So anyway, good. Good to hear from you, Lewis. I want to check in with Joe next because I don't know how long he's got in the car with us this week. So Joe, if you could kind of take us into your practicum one. We've shared a couple of emails back and forth. How's the process going of finding a placement and getting started?
Pretty slow.
Okay.
So, since I think the last time you and I spoke, really, I've had a promotion at work, so I'm our state director now. So I've got a new program that I'm overseeing. We're starting up three crisis residential homes in the Tulsa area.
Whew.
So I've been, yeah, buying homes, renovating homes, and we've hired our clinical staff, and now I'm hiring our direct care staff. So it has been, I have taken my academic hat off and put my full work hat on for the last 2 months. And we go live with these homes. We start on July 1st. So this June is just a nightmare of schedules for me. So I have not done anything other than get my practicum location sorted. I've got the contract back from them. I got that back on Monday. So I have done that much. So this is honestly, I'm still on the fence, but I'm listening to your opening remarks is probably pushing me towards maintaining this class this summer. But it's just been it's been so busy. I'm really worried about my availability to get hours accrued this summer. So I'm
Well,
still gonna push through and try and do it. But yeah, it's gonna be difficult. The month of June for me is from in my last role and the first 2 years of school. I've had plenty ample of time to do schoolwork. This is just a different beast right now. So I'm trying.
before we come up with a firm answer on that, let's take a look. So I'll pull out, I'll show the syllabus in a minute and the other expectations. I want you to consider the other expectations that we have, because we'll all lay them out to where it's, you can kind of make better sense than just seeing a piece of paper. And kind of see, and again, I'm whatever I can do to support. That is a huge undertaking. I can't imagine with the inspections, with the certifications you've got to go through. I
Yeah.
can't even imagine everything that you've got up in the air right now. So, and what in cases like that, things come up where it's not foreseen and it's extra time. So, let's. I'm okay with what you want to do, but let's be open to realism too, which it sounds like you are. So, um, okay, okay. So and so the talk is. I know it's been a minute since you looked at the contract probably and talked to the folks where you were going to go. You might share. what that facility looks like for the rest of us. And this again, it's kind of a get to know each other session too. So
Yeah.
because part of what I want us to do in this class is to be able to share with each other what our experiences are and then to learn from each other's experiences as well. That's not something I can emulate or replicate as an instructor because you all are actually live working with clients. So
Right.
that's one of the values of this as a group supervision format that you all are in a similar boat. So tell us a little bit about the facilities and the folks that you're going to work with there.
Yeah, so Peak Performance is the name of the group. It's two LPCs. One of them I worked with as a coworker when I was with Grand. He was an operational director, as I was, and we left at the same time. And he formed this group and does a lot of work with men, lots of work with executives and coaching and things like that. It's a private practice. Well, they do accept all kinds of insurances and Medicare, but there are some services where they have folks that just can't pay their rates or they're just not covered. And so when we were talking about Practicum, I was just keeping we're friends, so we just stayed in touch, and he said, "Hey, I've got a lot of people that just can't afford to do what we do, but I could give those clients to you to see for Practicum." And so that's the idea is that I'll be seeing the clients that can't afford or need or doing pro bono work really for their private practice.
Okay, okay. That's awesome to be able to do pro bono work. When I was a director at Youth and Family, the the optimal experiences for practicum students were when we had folks that couldn't pay and we could connect them with their own clients. And so,
Yeah,
for 4 to 6 months while a person's doing practicum, they can, you know, have a full type of individual counseling type of relationship where you go from intake all the way to, hey, I'm ending up, we need to, bring the relationship to a close. And so you get the intake process, the treatment process, and the closing process. So that sounds really ideal. Um, I will say this, we don't want dual relationships. And, as far as I don't know how close friends you are, if he is a super, if he's a good friend, I would strongly consider someone else to at least provide, the supervision component of that, under that agency. I know there's a couple folks there that,
yeah,
looking at the billing for it there. What, if any, so ideally the way this goes and so those of you that are tuning in watching this, ideally for Practicum 1 students, the way this goes is a transition from, okay, I'm new to this placement, I'm orienting, I am getting used to the facility's procedures, their paperwork, their IT, their information technology, whatever it is, however you record keep. That is the expectation in our program that students will get some exposure to different record keeping systems, different systems of client care, and also in that kind of a stair stepping with gradual exposure to being independent. So it's written in our handbook that Practicum 1 students can actually could go through and just shadow the whole time in Practicum 1, where you're just, kind of a fly on the wall in therapy sessions. During COVID, it was okay, I'm blacking out my camera, hiding my screen, and being a part of a therapy session, a video session. Prior to COVID and afterwards, it's, if I can sit in and maybe even transitioning to some co-therapy. So as a supervisor at Youth and Family, I would offer, okay, this is your client. I want to transition this over to your client. So we're going to do some co-therapy together with this family or this individual. So those are ideal situations because you get to watch live another person, and then also you step in and try. And then eventually what you spoke to, which is, that pro bono work where you're working individually, with people, that's ideal. So that again, that transition, that scaffolding of independence toward independence is what we're really looking for in the program. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there for you and the others that are
Yeah.
new in Practicum One. That's and it doesn't always work that way. Our, my own Practicum, I'd worked in the field a little bit, so they trusted me and they just threw clients at me, and it was like, well. Looking back, I was like, I really wished I could have, observed and different things, but because it is valuable to see different, we see a little bit of it in the program and strategies and supervising group. We see a little bit of the, different styles, different personalities, but then to actually see somebody with a license, man, that's invaluable because you get to, hey, I got a little tool that I picked up from them. And sometimes our personalities don't match, but there's still little nuggets that we can take. So
Yeah.
very, very cool. So I read about the agency, about the owners, so it looks like a good situation. Um, anything else? What are your thoughts after you grad? So you're planning to graduate in fall, right?
That's the
What
plan.
we'll see. What is your plan? Let's ask kind of open-ended.
Yeah, that is the plan. It's going to be the only thing that would hang that up is going to be not being able to complete practicum this summer. Like that would be the thing that would push that back.
Okay.
But afterwards, I'm going to, maintain employment with where I'm at, but do work towards, you know, a licensure and do private practice. I probably will see a handful of clients at a time. I'm not looking to get into agency work or anything like that, but.
Okay. One of the good things that our state did, well, it's good and bad. One of the different things that our state did in August of last year, which was really like, where'd this come from for most of us out in the field? They suddenly changed the parameters for supervision. And so formerly the parameters for supervision, you had to be at least half time working in the field. So you had to have at least 20 hours, seven and a half of those had to have been direct, and the other 12 and a half indirect each week to accrue hours. So I had a supervisee in kind of a similar situation to you when I was at Youth and Family, and I was a licensure supervisor, and she just couldn't. She was getting like 12 hours a week, like maximum, like 10 and 12. They threw all of those out because it had to be at least half time. So they've changed the rules. Now you can accrue whatever at a lower rate. And they've also changed that only 10% of your hours have to be direct. So you could have like one client and observe 9 hours and have 10 total hours, and that would count. Now, it'd be a really slow process to get to 3,000 at that rate. But,
Mhm.
if that's what you could, legitimately do per week, you could still like, matriculate along and work toward that. So it's yeah, that would be possible. The reason I say that is because it used to not be possible.
Yeah, I'm curious to know. So, like the work I do for, so I oversee a contract with that's through Odemsys with Mobile Crisis, and then the contract that I'm overseeing now is through DHS for the Department of Disability Services. I'm curious to know if any of those would help count or accrue or work as count as indirect hours.
Yeah, so indirect, we have our parameters in the program. I would need to, I would honestly, because that's a unique situation to look and see what could be counted toward the indirect hours and I don't want to give you the bad advice up front. So
Yeah.
I would want to consult before I give you a hard answer on that. What we will do as we go into the syllabus is talk about ways we can accrue indirect hours, and a lot of times those mimic. So for instance, I'll give you an example. Let's say you did like 2 client hours a week, at the private agency, and you did like 30 minutes of documentation or an hour of documentation for three. And you're like, man, that's not very much. But then let's also say that you're studying for NCE. I would argue that those study hours would count, toward, whatever it is. If you read for 2 hours or practice test for 3 hours, that would add to. So typically it's in preparation for, it's in, documentation. It's something related to client work or your development as a counselor. So again, if you're talking about administrative work, I don't know. We'd have to really look at the at how it's written, and I haven't done that in a while, so I don't want to misquote.
Cool.
Okay, cool. Well, I sounds like things have changed. Maybe targets have changed, possibly changed a little bit, but that's okay. That's what life throws at it. Throws at us.
Indeed.
Uh, well, Grace, if you could kind of tell us where you're at and what's going on for you.
Yeah, so I'm at NCBH here in Enid. I haven't been able to accrue any interim hours because I have to change my supervisor. So
Who was your supervisor?
it was Elizabeth Shipley. She's out of our Woodward office.
Yeah.
But now she's switching me over because we now have a licensed person in the Enid office. So it will be Abby Detar.
Oh, awesome.
Um,
Okay, you got you got
so
you got Abby. All right.
yeah. Yeah, so she's going to, I gave her paperwork because I knew I needed to redo it since it was all under Liz before, because I had
Yeah.
talked to Professor Trammell about it. So she's filling that out. And then we're going to set up our weekly meetings.
Okay.
So haven't been able to accrue interim hours, but I'm not super worried about it. I think I had 190 or close to 200 hours from last semester.
That's
So
pretty
I'm
good.
pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
I feel like I can get the rest of them.
Yeah, you're in pretty good shape. And,
Yeah.
and so you're at a place where, you see people regularly, so it's
Mhm.
something that can happen. And
Yeah,
that's
a lot of mine, I'm not allowed to do counseling or processing individually. I'm allowed to do MI, and that's like the extent of what I can do by myself. So a lot of what I do is sitting in and observing. Like I watch a lot of biopsychosocials. I sit in on a lot of those. Or like initial screenings, or if there's a emergency situation, then I'll help with those. So those are where I get a lot of my direct hours. I do have a couple that I see pretty regularly that I do a lot of MI and like kind of person-centered type stuff with that I use for my direct hours.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's we're a little bit limited here.
Yeah, so the contract, and if you're billing, this is one of the things I got into with Grand a few years ago, was that they were a little bit loose in their interpretation of what, case managers and practicum. And I was like,
Mhm.
no, it's you have to do processing. You have to do some sort of therapy. You can't bill, so you can't bill for case management and then come in and document that as a practicum hour. Because
Yeah.
I appreciate you, you know, uh, you know, being on the level with that. And it sounds like Grand understand, or excuse me, it sounds like Northwest Center, understands that. I know Abby
Mhm.
would understand that. Tell her I said hello. It's been a couple of years, so glad she's doing well. Um, so, and you get everybody under the sun. You
Mhm.
get to see just, and those crises, even though, man, those would be some of the, formative experiences you can carry with you. So if you can handle that on the edge of, okay, this person needs to be hospitalized, you're going to see just about everything. Just about everything. Other than that is going to be less acute.
Yeah.
So that's a good place to be in as a student, as somebody developing, as somebody ready to step into the field. Where are you direct? Were you able to get well over 50, or you remember where you stood after spring,
I
or,
don't remember where I was. I was over 50 for
well,
sure. I
that's
think I had like 70 or something. I don't know.
okay. You're still in pretty good shape. That I just
Yeah.
was checking there. Um, so what are your thoughts as you so you're going to graduate this summer or this fall?
Fall.
Fall, okay. So you'll
Mhm.
comp in the fall.
Mhm.
Um, I'm probably not going to have any comp prep classes in this semester.
Yep.
Um, and that's because we don't comp in the summer. In the fall, please note, typically it's either the second or third class that we do a comp prep. So whoever your instructor is, whether it's Trammell, whether it's Adams, whether it happens to be me, that should be something that you're getting. If your instructor isn't talking about that, email me because I'll come in and we'll talk about what exactly the comps look like. What I would encourage all of you and everybody watching on TV land too is just get your core classes. So your plan of study, the top, all those 14 different classes that are up there on the required, those are the content areas that we're going to pull from. So they match the content areas on the National Counselor exam. So things like abnormal psychology, things like career education, group, ethics, multicultural. Make sure that you're at least knowing where your materials are, where your PowerPoints are, where your books are, because that's what you're going to want to study. And I do encourage people to do that. I know there are a lot of different strategies to study for the NCE and our comps. I know some people really like that purple book by Rosenthal. I'm more of a fan of let's get where your synapses were actually formed or began to form. Let's get that information. Let's reinforce the synapses that are there rather than try to learn new material. I think that's where people have gotten caught up in traps before, or they get that purple book. Oh my gosh, we didn't cover this or we didn't cover that. Well, it's been a couple of years now, and if you're going to try to learn a whole bunch of new material right before a test, probably want to reinforce that what's already there. So I know there are different strategies, but that's one that I've heavily recommended that people lean into. Use the stuff that you've paid for to get here. Um, so that's awesome. How many hours do you know are still in your plan of study when you come into fall?
6. I think I have 2 classes.
Okay,
Excuse
so
me.
two classes, practicum and a class. No, you won't have practicum. You'll
I won't
be
have practicum. Yeah, this is my last practicum one.
so you're one of the few that kind of come through and the practicum's done,
Hmm.
and you still
Yeah,
have
I just have like a
rest.
couple of electives left to finish, and that's all I got.
Okay, well that'll be good. So that'll should give you some time to study and prep.
Hmm.
Um, having that month, to kind of start daily, just okay, this week I'm going to cover individual and ethics. Next week I'm going to cover multicultural and human growth and development. Next week, come up with a strategy how you want to do that. It's usually making sure you hit the headliners, the main points in those classes. Um, usually get students by. So, well. It sounds like you've had a good experience so far, with your practicum. Decent. What are your
Decent. Yeah,
plans?
I've learned a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I bet you have learned a lot. What are your plans when you graduate?
As soon as humanly possible, I want to get out of here.
Well, that's fine. I will keep that on the DL so you keep your
I
relationship.
don't think it's very secret.
Well, but this is still a sacred place. Please know that
Yeah.
I respect FERPA and HIPAA and all those good things, and we'll keep your info on the DL. What are you thinking about doing when you're like,
Um, I've talked to Enid Counseling and Diagnostics. I've talked to what's it called? Enid Health and Wellness.
yeah? I don't know if I'm familiar with health.
Yeah. I don't remember if that's what it's Peace and Wellness or something like that. I don't remember.
Okay, I think I do
Um,
know. I think I do know the owners there. I think that
yeah,
rings more of a bell. Okay.
yeah. I've talked to a couple of other places and they're interested in taking me once I graduate. So
Okay.
I'm gonna look at one of those. I also know, what is it, like Quest or something, where you can do a pseudo private practice while under supervision, but not
Yeah.
entirely private practice.
Yeah. Tread cautiously there. I don't know too
Mhm.
much about that. I am familiar with that. Um, if if I think Sean Byrne has more information about them too.
He
So
does. That's where I got my information about it. So he
okay.
sent me the link to it and told me kind of how it works. So
Yeah, tread cautiously. I talked to maybe Sean, maybe some other people maybe that have done it and kind of see um, because I haven't worked with too many people that have done that. Is what
yeah.
I'm trying to say that. Um, well, and I will say this now, if you all are looking, at different placements, uh, please know I don't slander anybody, but I don't pull any punches on the challenges or the strengths of agencies. So every place that you go is going to have strengths and it's going to have weaknesses. Some might have more strengths than others. Some might have, you might be willing to put up with more because it's a particular population that you want to work with. So I know of no perfect situation. So that doesn't exist. So please know as you move along professionally, I don't mind to be a point of consult from being around for a little bit in Northwest Oklahoma. Now, can't speak to everything in Oklahoma City. Definitely can't speak to everything in Tulsa. But around our parts, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, and so people establish reputations over time. And that's all I will say. Well, gang, I appreciate getting to know you a little bit more. I wish we had all of us here. I'll probably spend a little bit more time next week. So I may cut class a little bit short because we'll be spending some time next week so that you all get to know the other folks that are in this class. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, step through the nuts and bolts of what we need to do to get oriented, and we'll kind of see what time we have left for questions. So give me a minute to navigate the technology here. So I'm gonna have to change my camera. Okay, let's see. And my vision is going quickly. I've got an eye appointment coming up soon. It is ridiculous what has happened. I think it's too much. The dissertation I think just completely fried my retinas, and that's they've taken all they can stand. All right, where can I change my display? It also destroyed my cerebral cortex, so it doesn't operate as efficiently as it once did. Do the camera first. Okay, there's that. And then let's do the screen. Okay, and there's that. And can you see from your devices, can you see my screen, which has the syllabus listed? Okay, all right, that's a good thing. That's where we're supposed to be. Okay, so if you go into the course and hopefully you've had a chance to go in and look here, the first thing that we'll talk about is this. Let me cut to the chase. So the very first thing I've published up here because I've had complaints that man, there's so much on here, Randolph. Like I don't, it's just so confusing and so to make this really concise for folks. I wanted to create this. It's a helpful checklist, and what it has on it's a PDF, and what it has on it is what you're responsible for, like how you're graded. This is what it looks like, and I added one thing prior to class because Adams and Trammell are going to do a weekly site supervision um, assignment, and I think you did. So Lewis and Grace, you all have done this, and I wanted to continue this. So I added this here at the last. Come on, now it's not me. Now I'm waiting on the computer. Okay, I'm going to blow this up as much as I can. Okay, so here's our Practicum 2025 assignment checklist. The very first thing you want to do, if you haven't already, is to obtain liability insurance. HPSO is very common in the field. It is widely accepted, respected. It's not too expensive. Those of you that purchased HPSO in the spring, how much did you pay for that annual or that yearly coverage?
I don't remember exactly, but it was not very much.
It should be under 50. If
Yeah,
it
I think it was like $40. No, it
it
was
was
less than that. It was
uh
cheap.
I thought I think the last time I checked it was 42. It's not it's not free, but it's not something like hundreds of dollars. So the what I will need, so pay close attention here to so some people get confused on what they upload. I have to have the document with these things. It has to have your name listed, your policy number, and dates of coverage, and the amount of coverage. So those four things there, your name, the policy number, dates of coverage, amount of coverage. The amount of coverage should, I think they changed it to 1 million and then 1 million individual claims, 5 million aggregate. If it's 3 million aggregate, I can still take that, but I think they just changed what they offer. So that's due this week. It doesn't take long. If you're like, crap, I'm out of time. It doesn't take long to get it. You just have to get on the website, indicate that you're a student. Don't pay for the full counselor because it's more. That one is over $100 a year, but definitely register as a student. They should get that back to you within 24 hours. That's been my. They should come via email, and it'll be in an email format. Um, I will say you can also, if you want to, you can join the American Counseling Association, and that's like as a student, it's around $100. You get a lot of perks with that, a lot of like hotel discounts, rental car discounts. You get you get a free insurance, and that's turnaround's usually a day or two as well. So I encourage people to join the American Counseling Association because you get a lot more with that as well, and so you get access to Counseling Today. You get a monthly subscription to that periodical. So that's also and free liability insurance as a student with that. Um, the other thing that you'll get, and this is only worth 5 points, and I'll show you what these are in just a minute. The syllabus and handbook acknowledgement. Just read through the syllabus and the handbook. Let me know that you understand it. The third thing is the FERPA release form. I'll show you what that is. It allows me as an instructor in the university to have conversations about you with your site. Otherwise, you're protected under FERPA. So it's just like the same thing with the release form to your client, a HIPAA release form where, hey, I'm going to talk to another professional about you. So that's the parallel. This is more involved, and this is your actual contract. There are 5 sheets of paper that go along with this. And the first 2 pages are an actual agreement between Northwestern, you, the student, and your site. So I'll show you what that contract actually looks like here in a few minutes. That's due this week. If you're watching and you're panicked and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have a site, I will work with you. Okay. Sometimes it takes a little bit. Don't panic too hard. If it's this is our first week of class, and so if it takes you another week or two to get a placement, or for some reason even a third week, I'll work with you. Don't panic about this. But if you have your site, let's try to get that in, and I'll show you what that is. Practicum 1 students. This, you have something due by the 15th, and it's a reflection of your experience up to date to currently as a student, like coming in. So this is a big, grand reflection. Like, this is where I was, and this is where the program got me, and this is what my expectations are for Practicum. Practicum 2, you'll have a final reflection. So you don't do that one, Practicum 2 students. But you do have one at the end of the semester. You do have a final reflection. So if it makes sense, Practicum 1 students do this once. Practicum 2 students do this once. It's a reflection paper, and it's either a beginning reflection as a Practicum 1 student, or it's a final reflection as a Practicum 2 student. Practicum 2 students, that's due like the very final day I can accept stuff on the 22nd, 27th. There are session recordings. These are also worth 100 points each. I didn't put it on here. So these take some time. These are in more detail than what you provided for supervised. So what your parallel is you worked with other students in supervised to produce these videos. You did a transcription. You also did a reflection. These are in more depth and more length as practicum students. So ideally, you are working with real clients on your site. If it's taking you a minute to get established, I'll work with you on that June 15th deadline for the first one. I don't want to wait too long. If you're like, man, my site is a hospital, they're not going to let me record a client. That we deal with, with HIPAA, and I can't, this contract doesn't allow me to. Uh, if you can't find someone, so I don't want you to do a close friend. I don't want you to do another student in this case. I want you to find someone that is that you can be pretty objective with. I want to see these recordings are for you and are for me to really assess where you are with your development. Like, can I put into play everything that I've learned to date and establish rapport with this client? Recording two, can I have some continuity from my session one where I started with this client? Can I, begin to build more of this relationship? Can I begin to establish, more substantial goals? Recording three. If you're going to prac one to all the way to prac two and you want to keep the same client and have 6 recordings with the same client, that's fine with me. And that way I'm seeing you're seeing a progression. If these happen to be with different clients and you just can't, that's okay too. There's some flexibility, but ideally you're again you're doing some scaffolding here. I'll talk more about that in a minute. You have a midterm. This is a check-in on July 1st. It's due. It's just it's a really quick 2-page form where you and your site supervisor just do a quick it would be in your weekly meeting where you're like, okay, here's where we are. Here's kind of your site supervisor does a quick assessment and you do a check-in. It shouldn't take long, maybe 5 minutes for that. Your final evaluation paperwork, that's due on the 27th. There's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it. It's an 8-week semester, and this will be a lot to submit at the end, and I'll go over what that is. To keep in conjunction with the other professors. I don't see me getting behind too much or you getting behind too much because it is 8 weeks. Uh, there's a weekly site supervision document that goes in. This mimics what you will submit for the board once you're under supervision. And I'll talk about what that is. So this is everything. So keep this assignment checklist because if you add up these points, we've got 100, 150, there's 450, 550, 600. You have 635 total points that you can earn. And they're all right here on this page. Okay, let's go to the syllabus. Oh, I need to take my edit mode off. All right, this is summer practicum. It is 8 weeks. We don't have a textbook, but I might ask you to recall things from textbooks from individual strategies and techniques are supervised. So hopefully you still have those books. You have to, this is the culmination of your experience as students at Northwestern, as counseling students. So this is like you're showing your mettle. You're showing, hey, this is what it's actually like to practice. Students have to obtain a minimum of 150 hours experience it says per semester. Definitely practicum one, there you don't pass go. You don't get a grade in this class till you get 150 hours. A minimum of 50 direct and 100 indirect. We'll go over what those are. You're welcome to read through competencies and standards and objectives. I'm not going to go over those in detail here, but please know you're expected to read them. You can notice alignment with KCREP here. I need to update this to the 2024 standards, but please know we do abide by as much as possible the KCREP ACA standards. Again, you're welcome to read through those. Okay, here are the course requirements. Students have to read the handbook and syllabus in their entirety before proceeding. Students must meet with the instructor to discuss their practicum placement options. Most of you have done this. I haven't heard from everybody. So if you're not here today, again, I did this preface before I came on. I need to hear from you if I haven't heard from you. Just let's touch base. Let's see where you're at. I don't want people to get behind. It's really easy to get behind in 8 weeks. So let's touch base and see kind of where you're at, even if that's an email. Students must sign and upload the FERPA consent. Uh, you can't get hours till you do this. You can't do individual direct hours till you do this. Two things. You've got to have it before you can get direct hours, you have to have the FERPA thing signed and well, it's several things, but at minimum, you have to have the FERPA thing signed, you have to have the contract signed, and you have to have liability insurance, not particularly in that order. Here's the must-have liability insurance and complete the practicum contract. You'll log your clock hours, and I'll show you what that looks like in the handbook. You'll also submit 3 video recordings. This, again, if you're just coming in as Practicum 1, looks a lot like what you did for supervised. And there's a consent to release. So you have to have your client sign that consent. There's a Practicum site supervision documentation form, and I'll show you what that is. That's something that Dr. or Professor Trammell's had you do weekly. I want to continue that. I've got a place for that. Please be open to constructive criticism. There's a midterm and final eval. I'll show you where those are. Let's see here. Please know you have to abide by ACA ethical standards and the Oklahoma standards as well. Okay, please submit and keep copies of logs and hours for your practicum. As that's underlined and bolded, if something happens to you or me or something, it's really important that we have your hours documented somewhere and like on an official form. If you do use the Excel spreadsheet, please know I'm going to show you an official form that we use that is like the end all be all. Hey, this is actually what I do to verify my hours. I'll show you. There's a particular page, and I'll show you where that's at in the handbook. Okay, please know you're also, as in most of our classes, you're also being evaluated your personal and professional dispossession, or excuse me, dispossession. We don't want to dispossess anybody. That's not what we want to do. You'll be evaluated with your personal and professional disposition. Only one time ever in that I know about has a person not gotten through practicum because of a dispositional issue. They were aware of it. They also acknowledged it and they chose to go a different path. And it was at the end of the day, it was okay. And I'll say it this way. Not every person has the personality to be a counselor. And that's not often. I mean, usually when you've made it this far, it's like this is kind of what you're supposed to do. This is kind of what you're called to do. This is what your personality fits. It's very, very, very rare, but please know there is an evaluation there as well. You have to have your own recording device, so whether that's Zoom, whether that's somehow, taking private videos that are encrypted and protected. You have to do a reflective paper. All forms will be submitted in a timely manner, or this will affect the final grade. Please meet your deadlines. I don't accept late work, unless somehow you've communicated ahead of time and we're working something out. I've already gone over this on your checklist, so I'm not going to I'm not going to go over that. I will go over the self-reflection paper just quickly. Please know the self-reflection paper needs to be somewhat in-depth. So that's due for Practicum 1 students in a couple of weeks. It needs to be 3 to 5 pages minimum. Some of the things that you could talk about would be your strengths and weaknesses as you view yourself as a counselor. And that Practicum 2 students, go back and reread this too. You know, what have you learned so far in the program as a Practicum 1 student? Or, where did you come from even beginning? How did you perceive your growth professionally? So please adjust these questions as it would pertain to you either as a Practicum 1 or 2 student. Your recorded session. So for Practicum 1 students, each session must be a minimum of 25 minutes. That is a hard number. If you're at 20, you got a D to start. So please know that when you record your sessions, the minimum numbers are there for a reason. You need to get a minimum of 25 minutes or longer. For Practicum 2, you need to be at a minimum of 35. So those are hard numbers that you'll be evaluated on. Again, it's for you to show your ability to carry a session, and then to go back and take an honest look and say, oh my gosh, I either did really well or I did really bad. Most people, oh my gosh, it's nails on a chalkboard, but it's necessary. The self-awareness piece in these recordings are really, I would argue, or more beneficial than what you're receiving back from me, because at least you become aware of your tendencies. If recording is not allowed at your practicum site, it is the student's responsibility to find someone to video, either an adult or child. Recording consent forms must be signed by the participant or the participant's guardian, and a copy of the consent must be submitted with the tape. Students are not allowed to record spouses, partners, children, or close relatives or friends. At very least, find another. Again, these would be distant students and acquaintance coworkers that would be willing to help you complete the assignment. Once the session is complete, the student picks 5 to 7 minutes of the session and transcribes verbatim. And so I don't want you to use AI in this. You're like, well, crap, man, that Zoom will give you that AI transcript. The reason why I don't want you to use AI is because it's different when you read it and you're typing it out and you're like, oh, did I really say that? The interaction between the client and the counselor. So for example, this is a very, very short example. Counselor, thank you for coming to your session today. Seems like you're upset. Client, well, today's been terrible. Well, awful. And then so give rich descriptions here. Mumbling, crying begins, I had a car accident this morning, and now my husband is going to be very mad. So then this is so important. I can't encourage you how important it is. You had a car wreck. Please label what you're doing. Reflection of content. What happened? Open-ended question needed to encourage deeper disclosure. That seems devastating. Maybe reflection of emotion. You see where I'm going. You need to really label and show. So we're looking for your intentionality, like what you're doing. All right, and then at the end of the assignment, provide a detailed, thorough summary that describes strengths and weaknesses, as well as plan for growth in future sessions. Students will be assessed according to their conceptualization skills and self-awareness, the degree to which students recognize what they're intentionally doing, as well as how they define their own strengths and weaknesses. Intentional incorporation of micro skills, counseling techniques, and theory is required. Students will include appraisal of these as well. Students will discuss intentional theoretical integration. So actually, I'm going to take this out. In the summer, you're not going to have the option of a fourth video. There's not enough time. There's only 8 weeks. So this line does not apply. Then we have the midterm. Then we have the final professional disposition. You're welcome to read through professional disposition. You've seen this before in other classes. As I mentioned before, there are 635 total points for the class, and those are all on that checklist. Here's if you need ADA accommodations, please reach out to the following individuals, and please do that within the first week. We're going to meet via Zoom each week. A long time ago, we met in person. I'll say this, AI, um, don't use AI for this class. If sometimes I get like, if we're, okay, can I get some help understanding stats? Can I get some help like brainstorming ideas? This this is about you, and this is about you developing you. And AI shouldn't be leaning on to what you're doing with clients at this point. It should come from your own AI, your own real intelligence right up here on top of your shoulders. We won't have testing. I've got some dates here. You're welcome to read through them. And then I've got a lot listed under final reflection paper, and then all paperwork that's due Sunday, July. So the final deadline for anything in this class is July 20, because I have a deadline to submit grades. July 27th by 11:59. No work can be accepted after this date. And it's got listed what all to up. So you'll upload a whole bunch of documents on the last date under the tab that I'll show you. Okay, questions on the syllabus. Let me stop there. There's a lot. There's a lot in there. I know I talked a long time. What questions?
Okay, so you said that we couldn't use a student earlier, but then you mentioned that we could use them if they're like a distant student, like not somebody that we're
Yeah.
close with.
So yeah,
Because
and
I can't record at my site and I don't have many people that I can go to ask to record. So kind of my only option would be another student.
yeah, so definitely not like a close friend, somebody out of your cohort, somebody that you haven't been in a lot of classes before. If you need help coordinating with that, I mean, I've reached out to alumni before. I've had alumni help us with this, like former students. So if you just really hit a like snag and need somebody, you're welcome to reach out and I'll do my best to help. But yeah, if you can find somebody out of cohort that, maybe you know of but don't really know, that's okay. Okay. Other questions?
So for direct hours, can we see clients over Zoom?
Yes, so that's a good question. Let me jump straight into the handbook to answer that. So I'm going to go from our syllabus to away from our Zoom link straight to the handbook. And let me see if I can find that. I'll do a quick find. So direct. Oh, there's a lot of direct in here. Okay, here it is. It's on page 17 of the handbook. And so this can help us define direct and indirect. So here are some direct and indirect hours. Examples of direct hours consist of application of counseling uh, skills of students individual. So counseling content. So individual or group counseling services, couple or family counseling, consultation with parent or other counselor pertaining to student's client. So if you're like you're working with a parent, and even if you're giving a case presentation at a staff meeting or here in our forum, like you're directly staffing, comes from Dr. Kirby. We're willing to count that as a direct hour. If you're on site, and you're like, you know, at at a staff meeting in front of people talking about an individual client, yeah, there's some fluidity there. As far as videos go, as long as as long as it's in a confidential setting, as long as it's agreed to by the client, then yes, then that can count. And we do use that quite a bit. So a lot of times students will use that on their recordings now. What I find is I'll get about 50-50. I'll get some people like recording with their camera on their phone, and then I'll get about another 50% of submissions will be like somebody zooming in. Direct indirect hours is a lot of stuff. So indirect hours would be preparing for a session. It would be doing case notes after a session. It would be like this class. That definitely count this class. Like you've got 90 minutes of indirect hours already because you attended this class. Definitely attend this, and I'll show you where to document that. Definitely your meetings with your site supervisor are indirect. If you read a book, let's say you go into next semester and you're studying for comps, I would count those hours because you're trying to become a counselor. If you read a book on counseling, like Yalom's Gift of Therapy or something, yeah, count those hours that you're reading, that you're preparing, if you go to a conference, let's say you go to the Oklahoma Counseling Association conference, and attend to 6 hours of, definitely count those CEUs. I would argue that if you are on site, so this goes to everybody tune in, that if you're on site and you have to do training for your particular site, um, say CPR, first aid, maybe you're doing a therapeutic hold, you're being trained to be a counselor. Definitely count those hours as indirect. Even if it's like the mandatory trainings that people make you do. Those count. Don't sell yourself short. So what I found, it's a lot easier to get those 100 indirect than it is to get the 50, face to face direct. Definitely if you're observing, if you're in session observing, ah, that's direct. Like Grace, you mentioned those intakes. Yeah, biopsychosocial counts. That's counseling. You're doing an assessment. Okay. Let me go back to again. I'm not going to go over this word for word. You're expected to read this, our Practicum handbook. What I want to highlight here, and I want everybody. I know it's late in the recording. We're an hour and 15 minutes in. Tune in right here. This is super important because this helps you get started. Page 11 begins the appendices. Your practicum contract is fundamentally important. This is the agreement between Northwestern and your site. And so you will fill in the blanks. Whatever the day it is that you make the contract with the site, go ahead and fill it in yourself. And so you can see Northwest. So this is practicum contract is made this blank day so the fourth day of June, 2025 by Northwestern University, Northwestern Oklahoma State University, Department of Psychology, and whatever agency it is. If it's Northwest, so Grace had to do this for Northwest Center. So Joe, this will go along with the agency paperwork that you filled out there. This is our contract on our side. So go ahead and sign it. This next date is as of June 4th, 2025. You can see the agreement is in effect for 1 year. I rarely does this need to go past 6 or 8 months, but it's there for a year. We can, terminate it without, uh, with written notice, or maybe terminate at any time by mutual consent. So, if we terminate this, it can also be terminated like immediately. I did that one time. Hopefully never again, but it did have to happen one time. Here you can see this is necessary. So after you sign it, you sign it at the bottom, and you'll print your name. You'll want the agency director or agency representative, wherever it says agency school. So Joe, that would be the agency that you're at. I'll sign for both of these. So I sign every one of these as the chair, but yeah, this is how we actually get approved. So you can't accrue hours, so you actually have the true signed document. And so you upload this. You'll also upload the next 3 pages as well. This is your responsibility to go through and fill this out. So this gives the agency phone, the agency address, your phone, your address, the agency administrator,
Are
their
you
name.
trying to be sharing the screen with us? Because we can't see if
Oh my
that's what you're
goodness.
saying.
Yes, I had the expectation I was sharing. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I do that often as an instructor. So I'm actually in the handbook, and I started on page 11. The forms that you'll need to upload for me are the actual practicum contract. Starts on page 12. It goes just through page 12 and 13. Page 13 will have at this semester at least three signatures. It'll be me, it'll be you, it'll be whoever is the agency administrator or site representative. Just make sure it's not like you're not getting the janitor or a case manager to sign. It actually has to be an agency administrator. Um, the next page is you're responsible for as well, and that's the placement description. So Grace, you probably had to do this last semester as well. Just upload it again. So if you're in Practicum too, don't redo this if you're at the same site. Please just upload it again. I don't want you to, please don't reinvent the wheel. It's already there. So it's just upload again. Hopefully you still have it. But you can see that you want to make sure every line is filled out. And so the types of training opportunities that are, available there. And this is important. So please list the supervisors that are available and their license or certification. Their name, their degree, and then their phone number.
Does the placement need to be with someone that's an LPC or would someone that's an LCSW?
Oh, fantastic question, Joe. Thank you for asking that question. So that can be any licensed mental health professional. That includes a psychiatrist, that includes a psychologist, that includes social work, LCSW, that includes LMFT. Anybody, so here's the minimum bar. Anybody with a 60-hour or equivalent master's, which is why it's asking for that degree, and a
Hmm.
license, that qualifies.
How about a board certified behavioral analyst?
How long was their degree?
It's a 60-hour master's degree.
60-hour master's. I'd have to look, but I think that qualifies.
Okay. Well, this may be a lot easier for me now than I thought. I,
Yeah.
I was hunting down at an LPC because I assume that's what we needed. But yeah, I've got several LCSWs that
Yeah,
could work.
LCSWs would work. And the thought process behind that is you get the licensure perspective in the practicum class, you get the agency perspective from a licensed mental health person out there. So it's kind of the best of both worlds if you do have more than one perspective because okay, social workers see the different the life of a client a little differently than we do as counselors. So and they do a little different things, to therapeutically. And I'd argue we do some things therapeutically better than they do. They probably do some things therapeutically better than us. So yeah.
So this is slightly off topic, but I was looking at the Blackboard and I saw the syllabus and handbook acknowledgement that you had mentioned earlier. Do you just want us to like type on there, I've read and understand the
Oh,
expectations?
oh yeah, just something
Yeah,
simple.
just
Just
type it on.
just an
Okay.
acknowledgement. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to get to that too. Let me see if I can share my screen again. There we go. Okay. So and then lastly, so I said there are 5 pages with this contract. So the first two are the actual contract, the next two are the site description. The last page is this emergency plan. So this is very important that you fill this out and that you include this as well. So it's not a requirement in Oklahoma that you take the crisis intervention class. And so these things necessitate immediate intervention. And Joe, I know you're familiar with this. Grace, I know you're familiar with this. I don't know that everybody in the class is familiar with this. If you have any questions, please reach out to me and I will spend time, you know, as much as I need to make sure that you understand. But please read through these situations here. I will say this, what's unique if you're LADC, crisis intervention also includes imminent relapse. And so even though it says drug overdose, you could add as far as an LADC imminent relapse to this and you bill crisis management. So you need to ask your agency about this day one so you know what to do. And here are the contacts numbers. So the agency needs to list, you need to list names of like priorities, like who's the first person I reach out to in the case of an emergency, who's the second person I reach out to in the case of an emergency. And so I'm not on 24-hour call. None of the professors are, but there should be somebody at your agency that is. If they're not, then let's bring that back and let's have a discussion on how we can remedy that.
Can we have more than one um, practicum placement?
Yes, that's another fantastic question. And I do encourage that. So it used to be prior to COVID, it was required that students change placements at midpoint.
Mm.
Not each class, but going to practicum too. And that speaks to the variety of the experiences for the student. It makes more well-rounded clinicians. Um, I haven't stuck to that. I haven't come back to that policy just because it was a little hard to it seemed like just parameters got a little harder after COVID to getting people placed. So if you want to stick with the same placement, that's okay. If you want to do more than one in one semester, that's fine. It's just a lot of documentation because you have to have the doubles, all the signatures doubled in. And so that'd be my only downfall, but it's been done. It's been done many times. So good question.
Okay.
And that's it. So these five pages here, 12 through 16, have to be uploaded under Practicum supervisor supervisee contract. So that goes here. I'll make a little bit more of a note. Pages 12 through 16 in your handbook. Okay. Liability insurance will go here. So I've got these listed in order. So now I'm on the left-hand side, left menu. And if you just follow this and also follow the checklist, it should help you get this thing going this week. So there's several due dates this week. Liability insurance will be uploaded here. Again, it's got exactly what we covered. Your name, the policy number, effective date, amount of coverage. That's uploaded as an assignment here. That's the liability insurance. The syllabus and practicum handbook acknowledgement is just you go in and you type in if you've read it all. Please make sure you do it. That create submission. And it's basically you signing off that you understand everything. The FERPA document looks like this. The FERPA document is not in the handbook. It's right here. It looks like this. It's very simple. It's just your name. If you don't have your student ID, I'm not too concerned about it, but definitely your date of birth, your phone number, and you'll click this one. And so it's again, this is Northwestern's blanket FERPA, but any and all information related to students functioning as a Northwestern counseling practicum student. So that's what's germane to you as functional at the agency. You'll want
And
to
you said
put
we can just re-upload the one from last year, correct?
if you've
Or from
already
last
got it,
semester.
if you've already got it in the same person, if you change supervisors, a different person, you might want to redo it because it does have a name. Well,
Mine was just Northwest Center for Behavioral
if
Health.
it's a blanket, okay. If it's a blanket,
Mhm.
that's fine. But please sign it and date it. Um, that was the FERPA form. Here is the contract. This is what I just said, pages 12 through 16 in your handbook. And gang, that's it. So that takes you through the first week. Liability insurance, handbook agreement, syllabus handbook agreement, FERPA form, and then this 12 to 16. If you get all that in by the 8th, you've got your first several assignments knocked out and you're rolling. You're accruing hours. By the 15th, Practicum 1 students, you want to get in here and hit this self-reflection paper. Practicum 2 students, don't do this yet. And you can see what will happen. So if I take my editing off, you'll see that Practicum 2 students will have another one pop up later in the semester. So the last 2 weeks of the semester, you'll be able to submit your final reflection. Okay. Let's see here. That's session recordings. Same thing is going to happen here. Your first recorded session is up and live. So as soon as you can do this, as soon as you make your transcript and can upload all that stuff, it's here. What's going to happen throughout the semester is there are going to be others that get released. And what's happened if you miss the deadlines, these are going to go away. So if you're going to miss, you need to talk to me if you're going to miss this deadline or you're going to be held accountable to it. So please, um, if you can, it's the 15th, the same date as that reflection paper. Get somebody in, do a session with them, record it, do your transcript, do your reflection. Um, this is okay. So this is probably new for Practicum 1 students. This is your weekly site supervision documentation. I'm trying to continue a trend that was started by Dr. Trammell that I agree with. This mimics what you'll do as a licensed professional. This comes from this comes from your handbook. So if you go to your Practicum handbook, and this is page, I believe it's 22. Yeah, I'm right. It is. Yeah, it is 22. So this is page 22. Every week, you're responsible to you and your site supervisor sign off on what you talk about. And so you list the amount of hours that you're, doing that week, direct and indirect. So this is a weekly thing that you do with your site supervisor is you document what you've done. And so this is the data and these needs to be an hour. And so you'll upload these under this weekly site supervision documentation. I'm not issuing a grade for this, but I did want to continue that tradition to develop good habits.
So I know last semester we had to get the okay from Professor Trammell before we could start obtaining hours, saying that she got all of our documentation. So I just uploaded all of mine. Would you like me to wait until you give me the okay to start
If if
counting?
you if you get grades from me, you're good to go. So yeah,
Okay.
you do need to wait till you get some fantastic question. Wait till you get a grade from me because you'll get that feedback in the grade.
You mean
But
like a grade for submitting these
for the assignment, because
documents?
because
Okay,
I'll
gotcha.
because I'll give the feedback to you in Blackboard. Like if it's like some people didn't start accruing hours because they uploaded like the cover page of the insurance policy from HPSO. Like that's happened a lot of times. Like this doesn't count. I don't even know that you got a policy. So yeah, good question. Okay, we're almost done. The midterm evaluation form is here under midterm evaluation. Don't forget this. It's due July 1st. It's really short. It's just a really quick evaluation between you and your supervisor. It gives a number of hours that you're accruing, you have a chance for comments from your supervisor down there, and it's just you and your site supervisor's signature. And it's really more for your site supervisor to just, hey, here's after 4 weeks, here's where you are. The final evaluation. Okay. There's a lot that goes into this. Please look at your syllabus. Any and all hours, like all the paperwork, just upload it here. There's one thing and I know this is super late and it's an hour and 34 minutes in. I cannot stress this enough right here. I've got it bolded. Be accurate in your totals. Inaccurate computation of hours will not be accepted. There is one form that has to be flawless because this becomes a part of your final record. I'll show you that form. And this is the one that you can create a digital form. You can make this into like an Excel spreadsheet, but the one that you upload, this is our official form. It looks like this. It is page 18 in your handbook. This is your official Practicum hour log. It has your name, it has your field site, it has the dates. Like, don't go in and type different dates because these are the dates of our semester. It's June 2nd through July 27th. Week one. So if you start this week, June 2nd through, oh, whenever, whenever it ends. Let me see what would be. It would be June 8th. So June 2nd through June 8th. How many individual hours did you do? How many group hours did you do? Any other direct? Did you observe anything? Family, group, whatever, you know, your site supervision that you should document an hour if you're meeting with your site supervisor. Us, group supervision, count this, or you could count group supervision also if you do group supervision on your site. I would count this as group supervision for this class. So 90 minutes, you get an hour and a half automatically right here. If you're observing this video for an hour and a half, can't give yourself, it might be an hour and 45 minutes by the time I'm done. Go ahead and give yourself credit.
So I have a question about the weeks because the way that Professor Trammell had explained it was that we had to count like from this week of supervision to the next week of supervision. So
So,
your week started whatever day you had supervision.
so our weeks start the, I would start this document 6/2/2025.
Okay.
Every one of us.
Right. I just mean for like the weekly logs, like where it says
Yeah.
start date and end date. So she had us doing like from the day that we met with our professor or from our supervisor to the next one that we met with our supervisor.
So the weekly log should exactly match this.
Okay.
Okay. So the weekly logs, what I would, because we're starting supervision for this class, if you get your stuff uploaded, let's just start everybody on June 2nd. Okay. And so that way we go the first eight, we'll use the first 8 weeks of this form because it's built for a full semester, but we'll use the first 8 weeks. So everybody will end right here. You'll have a total direct. You'll need to indicate the total. You'll need to indicate the total indirect. You'll need to add those, provide the total there. You sign, your site supervisor signs. I'll add them up, make sure they're correct. And if everything's right, I sign. This one 100% has to be accurate. You will not get above a C if I have to look at this again and try to correct it because that's not expected. Why I'm super hard on this, and I've had people get an F on this assignment because if you foul this up for the board, this equivalent process, they could throw out all your hours and throw out your candidacy. So this form for me, I'm at some point, I'm pretty flexible. I'm not flexible at all on this form. Page 18 has to be flawless. Okay. And that was your final eval. And that's what it's going to look like. So your practicum hour log to me is the crowning achievement because that's what I'm going to document. I'm going to put in your file as a student that says, hey, they're done. Like this is our official document. It's got my signature, your signature, and the site supervisor. When you're done with all of your hours, when you're done with your program, this is actually what you will like these hours are what you're going to submit to the board. Your board will ask for how many hours did you actually complete. You'll find those hours by going to this form that's got 3 signatures on it. So it has to be accurate. It has to be 100%. And I'll give you, I wish I could joke about this. Every semester, at least one student fouls it up. At least one. Every semester. Don't be the student. Just I want one semester. And then I'll be like, this class did it. I can then say that hey, that your class was the only class that didn't foul it up. At least one of you. LADC. If you're doing LADC, I'm not going to go over that for you all here. Please reach out to me. I've got information for you. Your practicum form looks a little different. It looks like this, and I'm not going to go over all this unless I need to, and I may do
Are
that
you,
next week.
if you're dual track, does that?
If you're dual track, then Joe, um, you want to keep track of this. And so Joe, if you're dual track, I will say this to before we go into this form. If you're dual track, it's required that you have to have 50% of or more of your clients have to have an addiction primary diagnosis. So that can be tricky.
Yeah.
And so if that's not the case, we'll talk individually about how to make this work. Okay. But that's so here's this is actually the board form that I'm showing from the Oklahoma Board of LADCs. It's different because there are 12 core functions that we do as LADCs that they want to make sure you're getting hours in. If you're LPC, don't plan on it. Don't even watch this. But if you're LADC, we want to spend some time talking about this. I won't spend any more time today though, because we went over a lot. I've got more resources in there, and I'll look at those next week because we went over a lot of information. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, ideas? Everybody's numb because it was so much. It is. It's a lot to digest. Again, go lean into, and this goes for everybody, lean into that checklist, lean into the dates that are provided on that checklist, because that helps you prioritize all this big, massive paperwork. And I guess you could argue that, hey, this is where Northwestern prepares you for all the paperwork that's in the fields.
So did you say we're meeting next Wednesday at 11 as well?
Yeah, yeah, we'll make this a tradition. And I did have others reach out that said, hey, they just couldn't make it this week. They'll make it next week. So, um, Joe and Grace, please give yourself credit for an hour and 45 minutes. You're underway with your indirect hours. Um, otherwise, Joe, did you want to stay on? I can stop the recording if you want to talk about your situation.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Grace, be good. I'll see you soon. All right. Let me hit stop.